Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Reboot Ed, the podcast where we talk about big issues in education and hardly ever come up with any answers. I'm your host, Mike Vollmert. My co-host, Andrew Schwab, is once again MIA, but we're gonna push on anyway. We're really excited to have Jess Bowler with us. Jess is the principal at PK8 Elementary School in Yuma, Colorado. Jess, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Jess, I had the great opportunity to read your blog, and I was absolutely enthralled with the work that you're doing, and really excited to have you on the show to share that work. You took a look at your students, and you took a look at some work done by some folks at Stanford, and created a whole program around the concept of a growth mindset. I'm curious from a couple standpoints, and we'll get into that. But first, talk about your school in terms of the kids that you work with, and talk about how it is that you came to see the need for a program like the one that you put together.
Sure. I'm, as you said, I'm the pre-K through 8 principal. I'm primarily stationed at the middle school. At our middle school, we have about 225 students, and that's in grades 5 through 8. So we're roughly about 55, 60 kids per grade level. 5 through 8 is probably not the best model for a middle school, but it is what it is. It has been for quite some time. But you know, that's on the northeastern plains of Colorado. One of the things, and you referenced the blog, one of the things that was mentioned in there is access can definitely be an issue for us. And access to resources, going to the front range is not easy. Front range being the Denver area, that's where the closest access is. But resource also personnel-wise, usually we'll get teachers out here for a couple of years as kind of a stepping ground to move on and go back to teach in Denver, where they could probably make money, generally have a family, and again, back to the access of the city life. We don't want to use that as an excuse, however, around here. And that's really what prompted us to investigate what really could we do. We don't want to use our limitations as an excuse for not giving students what they need. And so that's really what prompted us out here. We have a phrase that we use, creatio nihilo, which is Latin for creation from nothing. That's essentially what MindWorks is. There are courses out there, and there are other works out there that go by the name of MindWorks. Our calling it MindWorks is pure happenstance. We didn't research what those programs do, and as you referenced, the work out of Stanford, Carol Dweck, Angela Duckworth, and some others. Those are what inspired our course that we created.
So, tell me about your students. Are these what kind of kids are you working with? And
sure. Our school, our community, Yuma, Colorado, we're about a 50 community, 50% Hispanic, 50% Anglo. And with that is a high percentage, there comes a high percentage of English as second language students. And, we bring in a lot of family. We have hog operations out here, a lot of agricultural related industries around here, which bring in a lot of workers. And of course, the kids come to school with us. And then on the other spectrum of that is a well-off community Those who come from that farming background have established land and livestock in the area, and so there is quite a bit of wealth as well around. So quite different ends of the spectrum.
So you've got a mix of relatively high socioeconomic status students and low socioeconomic students. Do you have a lot of migrant kids
Correct.
with the agricultural work?
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds from that standpoint kind of similar to my district. But
You know, here on the plains, demographically speaking, we're no different than a Denver public school. Only difference is where they have 10,000 kids, we have 1,000.
right.
Percentage-wise, we're no different.
So you took a look at your kids, or you somehow, how did you learn about the mindset work of Dweck and the folks at Stanford?
You know, it's just been it's really been an organic process. As far as jumping into the research, it's just been very gradual. You know, as an educator of 15 years, principal of 4 years, I've always found myself saying, you know, what do students need to make themselves successful? Education, you know, and I know there are two sides of the fence on this, but education has jumped the shark long ago, and we simply are not giving what they need in order to be successful. There are so many buzzwords that are around, 21st century college and career ready, and related terms. But then what we do is we try to quantify what we're teaching through standardized assessments, paper and pencil, you know, that type of thing. And that's simply not, we feel, that's simply not the pathway to success for students.
And the work of Carol Dweck and her colleagues, most of them at Stanford. For those of you listening, Carol Dweck wrote a really incredible book called Mindset, and the premise of the book is that people in general are of one of two mindsets, either what she calls a growth mindset or what she terms a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset person is somebody that believes in any given area that they have a finite level of ability or potential to do things. So when it comes to school, kids think they're only so smart when they're faced with a relatively difficult or challenging task. They tend to give up fairly early, and they don't show a lot of tenacity or grit from the standpoint of trying to work through a problem and solve it. They just kind of cave. Other students, though, and other people in general have a mindset that says, okay, this is hard, but I know I can do this, and they persevere and keep working on it. So, Jess, what you've done is you've actually ingrained work on this into your curriculum. It's actually a class, right?
It is a class. We run it through, we felt the best way to do this was to run it through our counseling program. And I have at the middle school here a very solid counselor. I prefer to call her a technique and problem solver because really that's what it is. But she runs our middle school counseling program, and we felt that was the best avenue for us to implement this class.
So you two sat down and organized this thing and then put it into the curriculum. Does every student take that class?
Currently, every student, minus just a few for a variety of reasons, do take the class, and that's students in grades 5 through 5.
And that's every day?
That is every other day. 30 minutes every other day.
Okay.
And actually, next year, what we're looking to do is we're incorporating it a little bit differently into the schedule. Our students will spend that time for 25 minutes every other day. And maybe later on in the conversation, we can talk about some long-term goals regarding the class. That's one change.
Oh, definitely. Because I'm from the standpoint of the class, there's a couple things that I'm curious about. The first one is, if I walked into the class, or somebody walked in to observe what's going on, what would they see? And the second one is, what's been the response from the kids, and how is that sort of filtered into their other academic classes, if at all?
Sure.
So let's talk about the first one. What does the curriculum look like? How does it lay out through the course of the year? And if somebody walked into the class, what sort of things would they see?
Sure. Great question. To be honest, the curriculum is still in development. But our overarching goals, in the first semester, what you would primarily students working through brain knowledge and brain knowledge program developed out of Stanford. Basically, at its simplest level, it focuses on how the brain works. And our goal there is to teach kids how the brain works. Essentially, the brain works like a muscle, in that it can grow. And that's one, getting back to Jack, that's one of the things that come out of her work, is that whereas once we thought IQ was a fixed quantity, in fact, intelligence is not. It is something that can grow. The big buzzword that we used before was grittiness, establishing that grit, and that's ultimately what makes that possible. So at the beginning of the course, it was working through that curriculum and just showing the students how their brain works, how it can adapt to different environments, challenges, and then filtering in throughout that some challenges, some different tasks. And now the course is really expanding. I walked in actually just the other day and saw on the student screen Grit Manifesto. So what the course is morphed into now is different group students working on a capstone project. Capstone and the definition of what the acronym stands for right now, but ultimately students define a question or present a question, and then through exploration, through curiosity, explore the answer. That may come in the way of logging, it come in the way of a variety of different online tools. I actually got approval from our superintendent for the addition of 30 Chromebooks to be specifically used for online. And so that will expand our capabilities when it comes to those projects.
So is the vision, when I was looking through, after I'd read your blog, I kind of, there's a website that you've got, Yuma Mindworks.
Correct.
And I see, if I look there was some Wordle sort of things, one developed by the 8th grade class, one by the 7th grade class, and now I'm going from memory, and that's never a good thing for me, but if I recall correctly, there was like one of those classes did a Wordle around the idea of grit, and so
and that
class had a different theme or something. I'm sorry.
I said grit was, that was the first major focus. Was instilling a kid in the students, what grit actually means. I mean, it goes far beyond just rising to the challenge. It's that mindset, the growth mindset, as you stated earlier. It's that growth mindset in telling yourself, I have to take on challenges. I have to be willing to accept failure. I have to be willing to accept mistake. Those are very powerful if a student's able to grasp those. And so that was our biggest thing. We knew that once we established in students a sense of grit, at least what it means to be gritty, then the next stage is to let the curiosity come out. Because curiosity, in our opinion, can't really be fostered if students are unwilling to make a mistake. If students are unwilling to fail here and there, because then they're too afraid to try. So curiosity is really the end, because once you establish in students the ability to explore their curiosity, expand on their curiosity, there's no level, there's no ceiling, which is ultimately what the creative growth mindset is. There's no ceiling to students' ability at that point.
Yeah, I've shared it in several presentations I've done, a little equation that basically has curiosity plus passion is much more important than intelligence.
Right.
And that's not from Dweck directly, but I think it kind of dovetails very, very much in terms of what she is promoting with this whole mindset idea, and it sounds like that's kind of where you guys have gone with respect to what you're trying to instill in the kids, that their curiosity and their passion about whatever it is they're working on is going to be the key for them to have a lifetime really of continual improvement. Which, I mean, let's be real, that and some basic skills in how to learn anything is way, way more important than a laundry list of topical standards or concepts that we want to teach the kids. If you turn them loose with the kind of things that, in my opinion, you're working on in this class, the rest of it doesn't really matter what it is. The kids are going to learn anyway. They're going to pick it up just by virtue of that being a challenge for them.
Yep, that's where we're coming from. That was well said. That's exactly our point. Is that adaptability? Again, back to the 21st century college and career readiness. You know, if the mindset is there, then those skills are easy to obtain.
Now, in terms of the program, you mentioned that you're still kind of developing how this curriculum works, and you've gone through a couple stages over the last. Is this the first full year that you've done this, or?
Yes, this is the first full year.
Okay, so you mentioned that you're already kind of foreseeing some changes and some modifications to what you're going to do. Talk a little bit about. Have you been sort of monitoring what's going on, or you're kind of fleshing this out as you go through it? What's working and what's not, and where does that take you in the future?
Well, and I can kind of answer that in the second part of your earlier questions. How are the students responding? It's been very interesting to watch, and we take pretty close tabs on the students to see what's working, what isn't working. At the beginning of the year, they actually took a grit survey to see where their level was. I think that comes from ductwork. Students take a grit survey, which establishes a number on a grit scale, and so then we'll re-measure that at the end of the year and see how many students have increased their grit scale. Just from a pure observation level, some of the students have not taken well to the course. And it's because of the challenge. What we're finding is a lot of students are very afraid, and they react in a variety of ways. They're total and complete shutdown. asked to be removed from the course for a variety of things. Students ultimately want nothing to do with the course because they're afraid to be challenged. The concept of learning to work through challenge is something that they're really struggling with. So it's been quite interesting. But we've seen the other end of the spectrum as well. Where students are applying it to their school, and even beyond. Actually, behind me, I have a note from a student on my board talking about grit and how she applied to one of her classes when it came to, I think it came to studying for a test. And the content was very difficult, but she knew that she had to work hard in order to do well on the test. So I keep that up on my board. Things like that keep us motivated to continually work on and perfect and improve the course. But one of the things, we're kind of looking here, and we're still discussing, we want to see these capstone projects. We're still early in the capstone process. So they've been in their groups for just a little over a week. So we don't want to rush to conclusions yet about how next year is going to look. But one of the things that we discussed the other day was perhaps looking at the students who participate, not having every student participate. One of the things we seek to do is to create here a school within a school. A school designed for students who need a different learning plan, and what I mean by different is an accelerated learning plan. Students who are able to master basic content at a faster rate than their peers, and therefore challenge that extend beyond the classroom. And so what we're discussing is the possibility of taking those students and using MindWorks here to create with them individualized learning plans, capstone projects, what have you, but individualized learning plans, project-based learning plans that allow them to take what they've mastered in the content area and blow the roof off through projects and other learning.
Well, one thought that occurred to me, you were describing, some kids felt kind of afraid or really sort of intimidated by the whole idea of challenge. It sounds like the same that Dweck describes in her mindset book, that you've kind of identified the kids with a fixed mindset and the kids with a growth mindset. Are you sort of focusing anything on working with those fixed mindset kids to try to sway that? Is that the purpose of the capstone part of this?
Actually, capstone comes in different levels. So yes, we are focusing on those students. Their capstone project will not be as rigorous as other students. Still working towards the same end game, but at a different level. One of the things that took place in the class right before Christmas or right after Christmas, I don't recall, is each student was given a small piece of 1x pine wood. On it, they wrote a challenge, and with graphics and whatever they decide, and then we taught them how to break board. And
oh, nice.
So each student had the challenge in front of them, and with a swift open-handed punch, broke through their challenge. So far, that's been the most well-received of anything that we've done so far. But I did read some comments on the projects, and I think those are going to go real well. Interesting thing, though, back to students who haven't received it well. one might suspect that those would be the students who perhaps struggle academically to begin with. And that for me was the biggest part of Dweck's work. The part that made the most impact on me was, students who have a high intelligence level may also have a fixed mindset.
Right.
And that was the biggest thing for me. And we've seen that in our course too. We have some students who are very intelligent, fast learners, when it comes to school, and they're not enjoying the class all that much either. And our hypothesis is the same thing. It's that strongly established fixed mindset that is disallowing from letting go, developing that gritty character to remove that ceiling. Not just saying, well, I'm smart, good enough. Transfer that to, well, I'm intelligent, but I know that I have to accept challenge, to overcome challenge, no matter what. So it's been very interesting. Definitely a study of human nature.
Yeah, and that I think the part of Dweck's book that I found most interesting is finding that secret sauce to help somebody with a fixed mindset make that paradigm change and actually come to believe that they can develop this growth mindset and sort of take the lid off of what their own perception about what their abilities really are, or what their potential really is. And I wish I could say I had my head wrapped around that very well, but I don't.
Well, we haven't found the secret sauce by any means, but that's the joy of what we're doing. Is if it doesn't work, we change the game. We have the liberty to experiment. I hate to refer to the middle school students as guinea pigs, but it has involved experimentation. Nice thing about me is, I have a son who just turned 12 years old, and I experiment on him as well. We've been working a lot at home with the growth mindset, and it's presented some challenges to him as well. I coach basketball. I think if coaches would establish a growth mindset philosophy in their coaching, you talk about paradigm shift. I think we would see a shift in how athletics go. So it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and the story of Michael Jordan, which I think Dweck also shared in her book. As a kid, he got cut from his high school basketball team, and it's not because the coach was stupid. What happened with Jordan had everything to do, though, with the growth mindset and the work and the effort that he put into improving himself to the point that he became the player he did. And Dweck talks about lots of different examples of people in a lot of different fields that do that. It's fascinating to me how strong that tendency is if you believe in that you've got a fixed mindset, how that really does kind of shut down your ability to grow past whatever you perceive your limits to be. Which, like I said, just the fact that you guys are having this conversation, I think is really incredible. How have the parents responded to this?
For the most part, it's been a positive response. I was to be honest with you, I was a little leery of what the response would be on our board breaking. But parents were amazed, and they understood why. On the surface, we're just messing around breaking boards, but underneath there is a deeper purpose. And I think parents understood. Our reactions early on were a lot different. to be honest, we didn't promote the class as well as we probably should have, and that was a result of not knowing exactly where we were going to head at the time of inception. When at the beginning of the year, where we thought we would go at the beginning of the year has long since changed, and where we are now. The overarching goal is the same, but how things have gone, what's been going on in class, that's changed ever since. So initially, we were very inquisitive. It wasn't really negative response. It was just wanted to know what was going on. And now, when I go to parent-teacher conferences or those types of opportunities where parents are in school, my counselor keeps quite a line outside of her door. Parents wanting to hear what's going on based on what their students are bringing home. So we feel pretty good.
So, back to the inception of this program, did you pick this up at a conference? How did you even come up with the idea that you were going to create a course like this?
It's just been from long stemming conversations. And ultimately, my view, I've seen the problems that exist in education ever since I began as a teacher. The simple fact that students are not receiving what they need.
Mm-hmm.
We're, teachers are too strapped with standards and with standardized testing. We're entering the month of March here pretty soon, and it's going to be, we'll be strapped to find any type of instructional time. Because here in Colorado, it's one test after another, unfortunately. But ultimately, it was just looking at the situation, jumping up about 10,000 feet, and thinking, what exactly is going on? I saw it ever since I was a teacher. I was, I don't know if rebel is the right term. But I was a teacher who didn't necessarily pay attention much to standards. I worried more about, what do these students need to learn in order to succeed? Yeah, I taught them English. Yeah, I taught them German. But ultimately, I taught them how to be thinkers. I taught them how to be socially responsible individuals. Students who were able to raise themselves to a high academic bar.
Yeah, I have to say, I think in that sense, you and I share a sort of common belief system. It was always important to me to talk to my students about pursuing their dreams and believing in themselves first as learners. I mean, you taught English and German, I taught oceanography and biology and science, but I knew going in that most of my kids were not in my class because they wanted to be junior oceanographers. It was a science class, it would fulfill a graduation requirement, and the ocean itself was kind of an interesting place, and so, they chose that as one of their science classes. But to purely say that I was going to turn them all into junior oceanographers, I think would be naive on anybody's part. For you to say every kid in your class is going to speak German like a native when they're done, some kids had the sort of motivation that they would be better at it than others. But for us to be able to talk to them about, pursuing their passions and, understanding there's a relationship between effort and outcome and those sorts of things was always more important to me than, the content itself.
And what has always been depressing to me has been the lowering of the reservoir. We view students by limitation. Whether it's a language deficiency, whether it's a disability, whether it's an IQ issue, what have you. That's just always been depressing to me. I've always been a firm believer in a rising tide raises all boats. And the expectation for me, no matter what level my students were at coming in, my expectation was the same. Um, the belief. I mean, it started with me in the simple belief that everybody's capable of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, in many ways, I was a mindset guy before I even knew it. But that's always how I've operated. There was a very interesting article recently in one of the Colorado education journals talking about the debate of lowering graduation requirements. And I hate to see things like that, because that ultimately creates the lowering that academic rigor bar.
Right.
Saying we're going to adjust the bar based on our perception of a student's ability, not that we're going to do what it takes to get them to the bar that they need to be at.
Yeah. And generate in them some confidence that they can be an independent learner regardless of the path that they pursue.
Correct.
Which, frankly, I mean, that's at the heart of the work that DWEC has done, and not just in education, but it definitely has huge implications for what we do in the classroom. How by the way, did you come up? Did you seek out the program that DWEC has? Did you adopt it full blown, or did you just sort of put your own program together using the concepts from what you got from DWEC and Franklin and the others?
Well, the program, the online program, Brainology, that just came across the table through our research on DWEC and the others.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that as a very good piece of what we were going to try to do through my to have an established curriculum really gave us a little bit of breathing room, so to speak, to further develop the program. But it was quality just because it was based on all of the research that we've done.
And then you added to that. It sounds like
everything else was our creation. And
yes.
When I say our creation, I'm primarily saying my counselor's creation.
Okay. So the kids went through the Brainology thing and sort of understood what a learning process looks like, how the brain works, and how plastic and flexible it is. The sort of stuff that, I mean, I haven't looked at that program so much as, just read DWEC's work and attended a couple lectures that she did. And then you added the capstone work and the project-based work after that. And so do you see that carrying out through the end of the year? Are you going to do a second project? How do you...
Well, again, it'll probably be determined by the students and how the capstone project goes. They seem to be getting along pretty well. We anticipate that this, and again, we're going to hit a bump in the road just because things will get interrupted when we hit testing time. So we don't really have the rest of the year. So we're going to push to complete quality capstone projects before the end of the year. That's ultimately the goal.
And as going back to the website, the kids are actually publishing their work, right? And they're going to share. Ultimately, when they're done with their projects, will those all be shared there, or just some?
Yeah, and how much they have hidden pieces to the website, and I don't ultimately I don't know what the plan for that is if eventually that will become published, but they do a lot of their work on the hidden side to the website, just so they have full access to it while they're working. When it's completed, honestly, we haven't really discussed that, what happens. So, right now, you see what's on the website. I know she has yet to upload some more videos of things that have been going on in the class. Students will expand their work to a little more blogging, things of that nature. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, we hope to get a lot. I mean, the mind work, whereas BrainWorks, Yuma BrainWorks was developed for the overarching scope of what we're doing. Yuma MindWorks was created solely for the students in those classes. Uh,
Okay.
and so that will continue to expand. What is viewable, what is published on those will continue to expand.
Jess, are you aware of other schools that are doing similar things? And if so, have you been in touch with them? And is there any collaboration, either ongoing or in the future? Do you see this as spreading out at all?
Well, I certainly hope it spreads out. Our goal, Elaine, the counselor, and I, our goal is to publish, what we've done as well. That kind of started with the article that I wrote. She's looking to do some published work, and so we hope to put that out there too, and provide people resource, provide schools resource if it's something they'd like to implement. We
Hmm.
do come across things here or there about schools doing related work. I don't believe anybody's doing the work that we're doing. A lot of schools work on some of the terminology, the grit, curiosity, character, social intelligence, those types of words.
Hmm.
Your tip schools focus on them as well. As far as our course, our program, we have not come across anybody who's doing what we are doing. Uh, a lot of schools see the value in developing a student's grit. Honestly, I don't think they know where to take that, beyond just a watered down curriculum. We're really hoping to do a lot more than that, and like I said, expand this. Our interest is not only students at Yuma Middle School. Our interest is kids across the board.
Hmm.
Uh, the interesting thing is on our website, uh, we probably have as many hits outside of Yuma. We probably have as many hits international as we do within the United States. That's pretty encouraging to us as well.
I think this is a concept that everybody at least tacitly acknowledges. What I think is interesting is that you've actually taken it to the next level and integrated it into your curriculum. Um, and for me, at least, as a school administrator, what I find interesting is you've basically said this is an important enough concept that we're going to take a period out of the day for our middle school kids, and we're going to talk about this in detail. And it's going to be an ongoing thing, not a little 2-day seminar or something like that, but it's actually an ingrained part of the program. And frankly, I think that's commendable. It's the way it ought to be everywhere. This is a conversation that needs to be had.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because that was exactly our goal. Is we didn't want to just talk about it. We didn't want to just do the Friday assembly.
Right.
So a new word of the week or a new word of the month. This week we'll focus on grit. We want to make it a living, breathing part of these students' lives, and we did feel that it was necessary, and a vital part to giving these students what they need.
Any any conversations about moving the program down to the elementary grades in some way?
We're not quite there yet. At this point, we feel that our focus group is the right focus group, meaning these middle school students. Students who are at that. Not that elementary students aren't pliable as well, but this is this is we feel this is the right target age for implementing a program like uh, establishing that. We're really excited to see fifth grade. If we're able to continue this long term, we're really excited to see our fifth grade now, as eighth graders entering high school, how they will be able to adjust entering that freshman year. That is such a transitional year
Right.
that presents difficulty for a lot of students. And so we're really excited to see, the how that allows them to adapt much better.
Yeah, I think you and I share a lot of similar attitudes about the nature of standardized testing, but I'll be real curious on the other side of that coin to see how your students, after spending some time, doing this program and having conversations, if that does have any impact on their achievement levels, and the test could in some ways sort of measure that. Are you seeing improved grades? Are you seeing any academic indicators in their other classes that it's having any impact?
We haven't really looked at any type of quantifiable data in regards to that. We're really going more just by conversations with students, hearing from the field, how MindWorks is applying to, applying to their school life beyond just the MindWorks class. I think they're still adjusting. Now that we again just early into the capstone project. I think it's still in adjustment phase, even though this is month number 5 of MindWorks.
Interesting. I know in my district we've got some teachers who have they haven't done anything approaching what you've done, but they've worked with the kids in a more student-centered way and sort of challenged the kids to be more in charge of their learning and really adopt the same sort of attitudes without formalizing it and actually focusing on it the way that you have. But even in the small scale ways that these teachers have done it, conversations with parents about the attitude their kids have about school and about their work and about what they're interested in and what they want to work on have been remarkably uniform in a positive direction. I can think of a couple cases where last year these kids were in student study teams almost all year long. They were behavior problems. They had absence issues. And this year, in this different sort of classroom environment, they don't miss school. And they go home and they beg their parents to give them more time to work on things. And they get their homework done, but they don't want to put their stuff away. They want to continue to sort of pursue these things. And really, that's the kind of thing that we're looking for, is kids that they're gonna pursue these things as passions, and they're going to be curious about this stuff beyond just meeting the requirements of the assignment. They're going to carry it off to the next level.
One of the other things we did at Yuma Middle School this year is we instituted student-led conferences, and they were indirectly related to MindWorks. Shifting that from teacher-driven to student-driven. And one of the requirements for the student-led conference was, they had their portfolio with some of the work that they've done, but they were really encouraged to put in pieces of work that they didn't do so well on, be it a test, be it a project, something they struggled with, and then have that conversation with their parents, talking about how they overcame that obstacle, that setback. Here's a test I did poorly on, and here's what I did to rectify that. Here's what I did to take care of that, to address that. So that was a very positive experience as well. And teachers, their response was overwhelmingly positive as well. They didn't know what to expect. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect.
Exactly.
But parents, students, a lot of apprehension on the part of the students beforehand. But at the end, it was very well received.
Well, Jess, the work you're doing is really really cool, and I'm going to follow up in a few months or at the beginning of the next year. I'm really curious to see how this thing evolves and how it plays out and what you do with it. It's the sort of thing that we're definitely interested in, and I'm sure others are also. If people want to learn more about what's going on, where would they go? How would they kind of dial into your program and see what's happening?
You bet. The simplest way is to get on the web, go to yumabrainworks.com. That is
Okay.
the student site. We also have yumabrainworks.com. And on there, there's a Principal's Corner section, which is where I do some occasional blogging. There's a piece from our superintendent talking about his views on student success. And we've got some other items on there as well. Just kind of to get a picture of our overarching sequence for everything. But Yuma Mindworks, or excuse me, Yuma Brain. I get the two confused myself. YumaMindworks.com. That would be the best view of what's actually taking place in the class.
Okay, great. And we'll put both of those sites up on the show notes so people can refer to that when we get this podcast put up on the website. Are you on Twitter, or do you?
I am on Twitter. My growth guy at Buller Jess.
Growth guy?
Growth guy.
Got it. Okay, great. And we'll put that up there too. Well, Jess, I want to thank you very much for coming on and sharing this. I think it's really incredible work. I wish you and your counselor and your kids all the best. It'll be really interesting to see, like you said, long term how this plays out. And we're going to pay attention to this and see what happens. So thank you very much.
I appreciate very much, Mike, the opportunity to speak with you. It's great to have people like you out there keeping the conversation alive and going and helping people like me get things out there. So I really do appreciate it.
Well, cool. And we will continue this conversation. So thanks again. This has been another episode of Reboot Ed, and we'll be back in a week or so with another guest. But Jess, thanks again. And like I said, I wish you all the best.
All right. Thanks, Mike.